G, you were about to get off on a Guardians rant. Let's dive in because I want to follow up, Bull, before you chime in.
Yeah, go ahead. So, it's disappointing because, I continue to say this, and I wish I was wrong when I say this, but I truly, honestly believe that at any given year, there's only 10 to 15% of your teams that are trying to actively do everything in their power to win. And some teams are just really good at masking that and knowing that this is a business for them. And if they happen to win along the way, then great. If they happen to impact and be able to win some games while making money and doing that, that's a cherry on top of the sundae. But I can't help but look and look at the way that the Guardians, over a larger sample size, right? Not just game to game. Everybody can see that they're losing steam. Mm-hmm. They're losing momentum. They're losing the advantage that they had on everybody else, which was you had guys that were younger, that were playing above their head. You had guys, your two starting pitchers are young guys that you're counting on that haven't really had that much experience. You're counting on these guys that are platooning different places to continue to, Stephen Kwan was hitting 400. We always put a lot on Jose Ramirez. We always knew that Naylor was going to have to play well and add that power number. But the fact that the trade deadline, and this is not just this year, the Guardians have not gone out and said, we believe we can win it all, and we need to go big. They haven't gone big. They did some nice little things here and there, but they could have put themselves in a better position to put a lot of gap and distance between the Kansas City Royals as well as the Minnesota Twins. And they could have did that. And they could have did it in a way which it wouldn't even have disrupted their core guys in the farm system. So when I ask myself, what does it come down to? You can't win a championship and your whole business model is built on guys overachieving or getting discounts or finding guys that you can salvage and rummage and Salvation Army, not saying they're salvage, but looking for bargains, looking for guys that you can get a really good value on. It's hard to win that way, and they're selling us that is the way that it's going to be done. But this is a year where they were playing with house money, they were playing with the momentum, and they just didn't capitalize on it, man. They just didn't. It just seems like that momentum is gone, and now we really gonna see what it is, because now you're even. Now it's a ball game, because now people smell blood in the water and say, well, listen, we feel like we got just as good a chance as they do, and Kansas City is playing like that right now.
Yeah, this whole Guardian situation is incredibly frustrating. I went back this morning and looked at their preseason projected win total in Vegas. It was 79.5 games, which they're going to blow out. They're going to beat that number by a good chunk. But this team heading into the season was not expected to be a division winner. This team heading into the season was not expected to compete for the best record in baseball for 3/4 of the season. And that's what makes what's happening right now that much more frustrating. Gee, it's like you walk into the bar, right? Mm-hmm. You see an absolute smoke show, 10 out of 10. You're like, I got no chance talking to her. That's the World Series. And somehow she comes up and talks to you and says something.
Right.
And you're like, ooh, I'm getting my hopes up. There might be a chance.
You?
And then you say something stupid because you're not used to being in that situation, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And it only hurts because you got yourself excited and believed it could happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Guardians have no chance of winning a postseason series or winning the World Series, but if they don't change drastically the caliber and quality of play that we're seeing from the last essentially month from this team, they do have no shot at competing and winning at the highest levels. What's incredibly frustrating, G and Bull, is through the first 4 months of the season, or really the first up until last month, fans showed out every time they needed to show out. Mm-hmm. Attendance numbers are way up. Every main time, prime time weekend series was a sellout on Friday, a sellout on Saturday, and a sellout on Sunday. Trust me, I tried getting tickets to a couple of those games. Unable to get tickets because of how well the fans showed out and supported this team. And in response, at the trade deadline with the best record in baseball, although we don't know exactly which players the Guardians were actually in on versus were actually not in on, and that does play a difference in what you can. They apparently made an offer for Jack Flaherty. Their offer got bested, whatever. They tried to do more. They got Lane Thomas and they got Alex Cobb. And so far, Alex Cobb's pitched 2 games for the Guardians, and Lane Thomas has been worse than anyone they had playing that position prior to acquiring Lane Thomas. The Guardians had the best record in baseball. The best record in baseball. And squandered an opportunity to improve this roster significantly. You can argue that Thomas, in theory, should have been an upgrade, and that Cobb would be an upgrade. But neither's come to fruition, and neither was a big enough upgrade to solidify their status as World Series contenders. Well, over the last month and a half, Jose's been okay. Just okay. Everyone else in the lineup's been absolute trash. John Kenzie Noel has hit for power. He's the exception, but he's not one of the main guys they've counted on throughout. Kwan's under 300. Naylor's hitting sub 150 in the last 2 weeks. Freeman, Schneeman, Rocchio, they're all abysmal. Fry's been terrible. And you have these guys in the minor leagues, like Manzardo, like a Valera, who are waiting to be called up, who, have you've said many times, Bull, have nothing left to prove in AAA. And the fact that we are now sitting at this point.
Who's been red hot.
DeLauder, too. The fact that we're sitting at this point, and they continue to run out the same lineup day after day after day, with the only changes being who's hitting second and who's hitting seventh, and putting one subpar player in and taking one subpar player out, it just feels like, I know they're trying, but it doesn't feel like they're really trying enough. And I know that's an intangible, you can't grasp that, Bull, but it feels like they've squandered an opportunity.
I mean, you could grasp the fact that ownership, that winning is not a priority. I mean, that's, yeah, you can't blame the front office for that ultimately. You can, how much is the front
much
office
goes each
fault?
way?
That you don't know, but it's clear that winning is not a priority to the owner. That's always been the case. They've won in spite of him. I'm not saying he's the worst ever, because there are positive qualities about him in terms of he's hired a lot of good people and he leaves them to do their job. That is admirable. But he's not doing everything it takes to win. So there's a lot to unpack from what you guys went through. They didn't do enough at the trade deadline is completely fair. They certainly could have done more. They certainly have not done all they could in 8 years. 2016 was the last time they went all in at the trade deadline. And they haven't done it once since. Not that every year they should have, but there have been some years they should have, and certainly this year they should have. They should have gone all in. They did not. Now, they didn't do nothing, so that's not fair. And Lane Thomas has been a really good player the last 2 years. There was no way. I can't kill them for him being this bad, because there's no way you could have seen him being this bad. They could have done more, no doubt about it. I wanted 2 hitters. They didn't get it. I wanted a better pitcher that was healthy than Alex Cobb. They weren't able to do it. Now, the reality is that the biggest reason they're playing shitty baseball right now is not because they didn't do more at the trade deadline, although that factors in. The biggest reason is because of what you just talked about, because their best players are not performing. When your best players don't perform, you lose. That's it. I mean, it's pretty simple. Stephen Kwan, Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor are their 3 best players. And those guys have done nothing for a month, essentially. Jose's been Naylor and Kwan have been hideous. And those are your 3 best players. Now, the lineup was probably always going to catch up with them at some point this year. And yes, they overachieved for a lot of the season. And maybe that was the reason they didn't go all in. But I'm sick of the excuses for not going all in. And maybe if you had gone all in and gotten another player, gotten another 2 players, maybe things wouldn't have gotten as bad as they've gotten now. There's plenty of criticism here. The ownership not spending money is a disgrace. The front office and the decisions by the front office to not only be petrified, they are gun-shy, in my opinion, because 2 years ago, beginning of last year, they had to give away Nolan Jones and Will Benson, and they both played well last year. But neither of those guys was any good this year, okay? And I believe they're gun-shy when it comes to trading prospects. They're too conservative when it comes to making trades. And that is some on the owner, but there is blame for this front office. And I respect this front office, and they have, for the most part in their tenure, done more good than bad. But I can't never criticize the front office. Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff have failed overall in the last couple of years. They have failed to do a good enough job. They have not developed hitters. Every top prospect that comes up has sucked.
Yeah.
Give me a hitting prospect, Give me a hitting prospect that has come up and been good. None of them. So even if they do call up DeLauder, who they should have and haven't, even if they do call up Manzardo, who they should have and haven't, even if they do call up Valera, who they should have and haven't, I don't know. I mean, those are your best prospects. I don't know that they're going to be any good because Tyler Freeman was a big-time prospect. He's been terrible.
Rocchio.
Gabriel Arias, big-time prospect. He's been terrible. Rocchio, big-time prospect. He was terrible. They have developed nobody. Other guys have gone to other places and developed. Look at Yandy Diaz. They never really gave him a chance. He went to Tampa Bay. He's become a really good player. So there's a lot of blame to go around. The front office being gun-shy on trades. They sat on all these guys. Many of them have lost value. At one point, 2-3 years ago, you could have got a ton for Jose Tena. All you got was Lane Thomas, who sucked. And Tena has been better in Washington than Lane Thomas has been here. You could have gotten a lot for Arias a few years ago. He has no value now. You could have gotten a lot for Freeman a few years ago. He has no value now. You sat on all these guys. You were afraid. You didn't want to trade for Sean Murphy. You didn't want to trade for JT Real Muto. You didn't want to trade for any of these guys because you had Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor stinks. He can't hit either. He hasn't hit the whole season. I know he's good at framing pitches. Fine. Dandy. Beautiful. I love it. It's a positive. He can't hit. He's not hitting. Now, I'm not saying none of these guys are ever going to hit. To be fair to Bo Naylor and Arias and Rocchio and Freeman, none of them have been up enough in the majors that I'm certain that none of them are going to hit. Some of them or all of them may eventually hit. But to this point, none of them have looked good offensively outside of Bo Naylor for a brief stint at the end of last year. And that's why they are where they are in combination with the fact that all their good players, including Fry, who was an all-star, have completely gone down the tubes.
I think
you can't win with just the bullpen. And you know what? The starting pitching hasn't been bad, but it's not been good enough.
And considering they lost Bieber in the second week of the season.
Yeah.
Logan Allen, Tristan McKenzie, two of their first initial five-man rotation players are in AAA.
Yeah.
They've patched work together a good enough rotation.
Yeah, it's good enough.
But good enough is not good enough
it's good enough with the bullpen they have.
But it's not good enough to outweigh the lineup.
Exactly. A lineup that was already flawed and has its best players doing nothing.
Exactly.
And
all that being said, I still think they have time to turn it around.
Yes.
And I think all the other teams in the American League are flawed enough that it's possible if they get back to being hot again, that they can make a run in the playoffs. But right now, it's hard to have any faith in this team.
All they had to do, and this is easier said than done because I talk about it all the time about Myles Garrett. One of the things that we looked at was Myles Garrett was a guy that was dominant, and we said, "Can you find me another star?
Yeah,
find me another dude." Now it looks like they got Denzel Ward, then they got JOK, and then look what happened. Your defense is lights out. The Guardians have never, ever found. They had Lindor and Ramirez. You lost Lindor. They haven't found.
And by the way, Andres Jimenez, who they got from, has been absolutely awful.
This year's been not good.
He hasn't hit for 2 years. He had one good year offensively.
And they have not found another star.
No.
Like, what I mean, not guys like the guy, Naylor's good.
He's not a star, though.
Fry, good.
Quan's not a star.
Jimenez, he has a great glove, but to be a star in baseball, you got to be like, if you say, remember, like, 5 tool players, hitting, running, can you field, can you throw the arm, all that. If you had to pick, like, what is Jimenez? He's what, a 2-tool player?
He's great in the field.
Good base runner.
He's a good base runner.
He has no power.
Doesn't hit for power. Doesn't hit for average.
I think his good year offensively was an anomaly, and people here got awfully snarky about Francisco Lindor.
He's having an incredible
I would
season.
much rather have Francisco Lindor than Andres Jimenez. I don't care who's making more money. If the Guardians still had Francisco Lindor and they didn't con the fans into believing that they couldn't afford to pay him both, maybe the Guardians would be in a lot better shape. Can you imagine if you added Lindor into this lineup right now? It'd make a big difference.
The power you would have in the middle, in your infield.
Right.
You have Naylor, you got Lindor, and you got Ramirez. You can deal with Jimenez, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back and relitigate the Lindor trade or whatever the case may be, but they have not found another star. No. All these other guys are finding stars.
No.
Bobby Witt Jr. then came around, and all of a sudden, the Royals is back. Like
That's it. And he and Salvador Perez
Yep.
the Royals. You look at the depth of their lineup. It's not great at the back end of their lineup, but their stars are playing like stars.
Yeah.
Bobby Witt Jr. is probably going to finish second in the MVP in the American League. Salvador Perez has been fantastic.
He's incredible this series.
You know,
Incredible.
and their bottom of the lineup is better than the Guardians, but it's not that much better.
No.
But their stars are playing like stars. And right now, and let's face it, Jose hasn't been very good in the second half of seasons the last couple of years.
No.
But he needs help. He took a major discount, and the organization, the owner, and the front office has spit in his face. They have spit in Jose Ramirez's face because they have not added talent around him, and it's a joke. And this is gonna be the 10th straight season, 10, without a home run, without an outfielder hitting 20 home runs. I can't imagine there's another team in baseball that's ever done that in the last 60 years. If somebody else has, I'll be stunned.
One more thing on yesterday's game, then I know we got one quick topic before we bring on Bernie.
Yeah.
When do we need Gavin Williams to be Gavin Williams again?
Right now?
Like yesterday is the answer,
now.
right?
Right
because
now. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to send him down.
He doesn't.
He's been a huge bust
He's
this
been
year.
back for 2 months now. He's been pitching for 2 months. We can't use that he's still working back. It's
Yeah, and
April.
he wasn't
terrible last
year.
year, but he's
terrible,
not.
no. He wasn't
He's
terrible
not the
yesterday.
Gavin Williams that you've needed. The Guardians.
No. I mean, he's got a 4.99 ERA. That's horrible. 1.41 WHIP is horrible. I mean, it's not good. I thought he was okay yesterday. He wasn't the reason they lost that game. They couldn't hit.
No, they got one hit after the third inning. Or no hits after the third inning.
It comes back to it, man. Like these other orders, these other guys in the middle of the order, you hold your breath when they get up. Like I'm like when you watch the Royals, you watch the Yankees, you watch the Orioles. Like you be like, man, they back up at the top of the order again. And it just feels like there's no room for error with the pitching staff. And when the bullpen starts giving up runs like they did yesterday, you really know it's a wrap.
Yeah, there's been some cracks in the bullpen of late, and if that goes south, and by the way, nobody besides Clase has much of a track record back there before this year. If that goes south, then they will be finished. But they're still going to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to win the division. They got to get their shit together in a hurry.
Very
It's been a
quickly.
big disappointment.
And you got a quick read, and then we'll.
Yeah, we're just going to take a quick pause here in our Guardians talk because I got to remind you guys that you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. But right now they're doing a little something different. September 22nd, now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. You just have to visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to download America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, let's get to the next topic. We got Bernie here. He's going to join us in just a minute. Before we get to that, one other thing on the Guardians. Can you look back and say the trade deadline was when things went south? We've kind of talked about it already here. I think they were already problems because we were really anxious for them to make trades. I don't think the trade deadline was the turning point. It's not a situation like last year where they traded away Savali, which I didn't have a problem with at the time. I know everybody was worked up about it. I don't think the team is like, oh, they didn't do enough.
No.
So now I don't think that has anything to do with it.
It's been trending.
It was trending down since the middle of July.
Yeah.
Well, you go back and Zach Meisel tweeted this out, but today's the first time since April 13th the Guardians haven't led the AL Central. They had a 10-game lead on the Royals in the division on June 26th.
Yep.
I'm not saying that. I don't even know what happened on June 26th. I'm not saying that's the day in particular where
Right.
it's all started to unravel. But since June 26th, the Royals have made up 10 games in the standings on the Guardians.
Yeah,
which
they
is
played right. The Guardians didn't play well right before the All-Star break, and they've not been able to bounce back since. They had that 1 5-game winning streak where they swept the Cubs, and then they won those last 2 against the Twins, and then they swept the Cubs, and it looked like they were riding the ship. But since then, they've played like crap again.
Let me ask you a question, Bull. They've gone up and down this whole second half of the season.
Yeah.
Lose a couple, win a couple, lose a couple.
But it's been more bad than good.
But even recently, they lost a few. Then they beat Texas twice, and now they've lost 3. Mm-hmm. Is there any reason to believe, or I guess let me ask this a different way. What are you holding on to hope for that they can right the ship here?
I'm holding on to hope that Quan, Ramirez, Naylor, and Fry all get hot again. And that's what happened for a lot of the first half of the season. That all 4 of those guys were hot. and it made things a little easier. What's happening right now is all these other guys in the bottom of the lineup are not particularly good. They're feeling the pressure because, nobody's hitting. So now some of those guys are probably trying to do even more than they're really capable of. Early in the season, when you were getting great hitting from the top of the lineup, there was less pressure on those guys. Every at-bat, you didn't have to live and die with every at-bat. Now everybody's feeling the pressure. You could tell watching the Guardians hit. They look uptight. Most of their players, outside of Jose, everybody looks very uptight. Steven Kwan, very uptight at the plate right now. They all look awful. Josh Naylor,
Yeah.
looks like he's hurt.
I don't know what's going on with him. He looks like he's in terrible shape. I know he's always been a big guy.
Look,
but he looks bigger than usual. I don't know what's
his jerseys is getting much bigger.
Yeah. And listen, this is coming from a fat guy, Josh. I don't mean to make. I'm not making fun of him.
We're not shaming.
He's become a great player. I'm not trying to make fat jokes or be an ass. I just wonder if the injury or whatever it is has led to him getting at it, little at it. I mean, he's a big guy. It's hard to stay in shape when you're a big guy like that. And I could be totally wrong. Maybe he's in just as good a shape as he's always been. I don't know. I'm looking for something to figure out what's happening. And I'm rooting for him to turn around because they need him. He's their second most important player on offense.
For them to be contenders, I think they need three. They have to at all times have three of those four guys playing well.
Yeah.
If they get down to two, and right now it's like pretty much
zero.
none.
Yeah.
If you get down to two, they went from three World Series contender to two is like first round. You could get beat in the first round, especially in the playoffs, because pitchers going to lock in. They got the whole book. They're going to be bringing in guys. You only going to see a pitcher maybe 2 innings. You're not going to get 2 at-bats against these guys. They're going to be bringing in bullpens, and then the pressure's going to be mounting. It's imperative to get guys, when guys are running in score position, you have to score. You got to get hits. And I think they are tight, but they got to have at least 3 out of the 4 playing well.